Good evening and welcome to another MTV Community Forum. I'm your host Byron Campbell and of course our co-host Chris Diali. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Byron, and it's a pleasure to be here back again, listeners and viewers, to have some fun on the issues that we're going to be speaking about.
You call it fun, Chris?
Yes.
Chris, there's a lot happening around us, particularly regionally, internationally. And I think one of the things that is making a lot of headlines, a lot of wave, is the whole question of the region, and certainly ourselves, Grenada, accepting third countries deportees. Yeah, in that, and let's analyze it properly. Yes, we've had a request, at least reported by the government. We've had a request since last year. I think it was last August or thereabout, sometime last year, from the United States government asking us, Grenada government, to accept third countries deportees. The government reported that they declined. Clearly, they didn't give the reasons, but they declined. We learn now that the request is now back with us. The U.S. they've come back to us and say, look, we'd like you to consider it again. In the meantime, however, other OECS countries, including, and I'm not counting here Trinidad and Tobago or Guyana and Jamaica, the larger ones, but OECS, so let's stay within the region. They have signed MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, with the US government, the State Department, to accept unlimited numbers of third countries deportees. Yeah? In the meantime, Grenada indicated they are giving consideration to it. They're studying the implications. But what's interesting is I've heard, I want to go in two directions. I've heard the Prime Minister comment on it, and I've heard one of their policy advisors commenting on it.
Dr. Fletcher?
Yes. And what I'm gathering here is that it is something we should think about, something we should consider. And the Prime Minister in particular, and both of these persons had indicated that we should look at it particularly one from the point of view of it filling our, not population, but our labor needs. Let's see how we could tweak this. Let's see how we could turn it around to our advantage, because we do have labor shortage, and I had the Prime Minister mention construction, he mentioned agriculture as two in particular. But here's the drift here too, that this is a US policy, and we can see it operating on the ground, how it's operating on the ground. At first, the US indicated that they would be arresting and deported undocumented immigrants, illegal status, those with criminal records. But that's not what we see, and we see it across the board in most cities of the United States, where persons are being, well, it's a human rights issue. It's been challenged in the court, in the U.S. courts, up to the Supreme Court. But now the United States is asking us to be part of this system of accepting third-party deportees. When you accept third-party deportees, keep in mind that you're facilitating this system of abuse in the United States. What gives us in the OECS and in Grenada the ability or the capacity to handle the social and other issues, maybe criminal, we don't know, but social issues or the social challenges that is, if the United States is unable to manage this, what gives us the capacity to manage it? And what the public has not been invited to comment on this or to talk about it or give an opinion. All the government is saying, well, a lot of it we can't say publicly, we're giving it consideration. So here we are. What's your thoughts, Chris?
Well, the Prime Minister have not had the opportunity to speak to his Grenadian people on any of these sensitive issues. And that to me is sad. The communication from government, from him in particular. And when you ask him about these things, he's saying he's probably not the right person to be asked and somebody else you should be asking and so on. Anyhow, I was listening to Dr. Fletcher and Dr. Colin Gilchrist over the weekend on this issue, and both of them supports the idea that we should accept third-party refugees. I think, Dr. Fletcher is saying that we need to humanize it and see how we could help. Because if we were in a reverse situation, wouldn't we like a third country to humanize us on what is happening? Of course, he also highlights the fact that it is not the best thing, but there must be some positive and opportunity in this sort of arrangement. The Grenada government obviously have not signed on to any document, but these two gentlemen are pushing the idea that they should, and they should do it with haste, so that we can get whatever benefits we think are available. I don't see how we could do it with haste. Dr. Fletcher have said that of all the people the U.S. ICE have been taken into custody, are not all criminals, and he's saying that his research showed that 80% of them are not criminality or have criminal backgrounds and so on.
Yeah.
That is Dr. Fletcher's thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, I am always one that have proposed that we need a larger population size, but not through third-party refugees. And the fact that we're calling them refugees
Or detainees.
or detainees, it doesn't connote well to what type and quality of people we're getting. And that is something we have to be very clear about. And then the capacity issues, housing. They are going to put pressure on the health system, pressure on transport and how we move people in that time. Are we prepared if we are to do that? Dr. Gilchrist said we need 20,000 people. We can't get them through, in my view, third party. We have to have a more structured immigration policy. The Prime Minister alluded last year that, we need to scrap the work permit issue. We have persons in the region, Venezuela, Cubans. They didn't include Haiti because they were very thing about Haiti and the kind of people we don't get from Haiti. So again, it speaks to the quality of people that we want to bring into our country, to socialize them on our culture and language and all of that, to see how we can get benefits.
But Chris, understand the pressure too, and how the U.S. operates as a bully in this regards. That we are, as I mentioned previously, that we could be considered on the cutting board right now, meaning that
the U.S. have been weaponizing everything.
Clearly, because one, the downgrading or the travel advisory on Grenada and associating Grenada with crimes and rape and murder is not coincidental at this time, Chris. Maintaining the ban on our fisheries, although we have so far submitted the necessary document, is not by chance also.
That is on us. That is not on them.
The visa issue also is not by chance. And there are more coming, we understand. All of this is to force us, to command us, to be part of this program that is considered illegal and inhumane in many instances.
Yeah, well,
So what choices we have? That's the question.
The new strategy in the U.S. has adopted is might is right.
Yes.
And they have very little respect for country sovereignty, obviously, after what went on in Venezuela.
And you could see Greenland and this issue.
Yes, and you could say that is how the new foreign policy remit coming out of Washington and the White House is going to be.
Yeah.
And our countries, as us in the region, and that is where, I am always disappointed in how we unite or don't do it. So here we have an OECS test. The OECS met on these issues, and we haven't heard from them precisely what is going to be their position, even though Antigua and St. Kitts have gone with their MOUs.
And Dominica and St. Lucia.
But nobody has said within the OECS what it is we're doing. And for the CARICOM, CARICOM has not said anything again on these refugee status and all the things that is happening to us from the U.S. in terms of what they're trying to do. So lack of unity within the region with such small entities that if we don't unify and come up with common positions that talk to sovereignty and capacity issues, I think Dr. Fletcher cited a Rwanda model that spoke to a lot of money being given to Rwanda to resettle these people and so on. The U.S. have suspended all aid to our countries in their various institutions. Do we really believe in reality we don't get money from them, 100,000 US?
And there's even no bilateral financing. I'm talking about financing that we need to pay back. There is very little of that coming from the United States. Also.
So
but of course, we have the School of Medicine. Our tourism is mainly visitors from the United States. At least where the bulk is coming from. remittances, Visa. So they've got us. We are linked with them. We could be punished. One of the issues came up, for example, has to be besides the fish. We mentioned this again. Look at our South Suck, for example. We are the only country permitted to
Of course they could punish us. The issue is,
so
do
it's
we
like a
sit back
hammer over.
and take the blows from the hammer, or do we look to negotiate with them on certain things that would not be acceptable to us, our people?
Yeah.
And that is something that
But
the government needs to come and the Prime Minister needs to come and talk about.
And that's a big point, Chris, the absence of communication from the
Yeah.
leadership to the population on these issues is one thing. Chris, let's look a little about the financing situation here. There was a Gaffin report just out. Of course, Gaffin is usually about a year coming. This is for 2024. Pointing out that, let's look at the credit unions, because they are a growing force with the banks. They have assets. Gaffin report that their assets are now 1.6 billion. Their loan portfolio is about 1.2, almost 1.1 billion. Total deposits of about 1.3 billion. So that's interesting. That tells you something about the credit union, where they're going, and of course, Gaffin is a regulatory organizations compared to banks are regulated by the central bank. So they're a bit different. And they're asking for more authority. They want to operate checking systems and other systems, you know. But what's your take on the credit union, how they're going, how their growth and their impact?
I think the credit union movement have done well as part of the financial landscape of Grenada in terms of their growth and what is happening as a sector.
Yeah.
So they have done, and yes, Gaffin is the regulator for them to ensure that they meet their ratios,
Yeah.
the Pearls ratios, to ensure that financially they are stable and that they don't pose a risk to the financial sector in Grenada. And one of the issues I have some concern about is in recent times, I mean, yes, your loan portfolio could grow, but nobody seemed to be speaking about the non-productive loans of that. They have asked for more to get on the checking system, the clearing system with the banks as the banks are. ECCB have said that they're hesitant to go there. They need to make their minds up if they want to be a bank or remain as a credit union. Because when you get onto that, the requirements to meet ECCB regulations become much more steep. And compliance in the credit union movement for things like ATL and anti-money laundering and terrorist financing is an area where most of the credit unions, in terms of the small ones, have not been able to meet the requirements. The big ones, yes. But those are areas of weakness. But in recent times, when you looked at what is happening in the movement, from my understanding, when you're offering interest rates of 3.9 on a mortgage, 5% on motor vehicles, and you're offering interest rates of 4.25, 3.5 for deposits or CDs, as the case may be, the question for me is, what is the spread? Now, I have not looked at the average spread for the different loan types, because you may get a vehicle at 5% over, I mean, imagine 10 years, 100% financing. So
10 years.
The risk to me, yes, you may get volume, but the risk here is for the credit union. How do you ensure that you have enough spread to meet all your other expenses that you incur?
Operating costs,
The operating costs. So that in recent times, and that seems to be what most of the credit union, the big ones, are pushing. So you might be growing your loan portfolio, you need money to give people loans. So they offer in your interest rates that could attract you in terms of deposits, compared to the banks with 2% and 0% on CDs. So they may get a lot of traction with that, but you have to manage, as I say, the spread. Because when you're paying out all that interest for deposits and CDs, what is happening on the loan side, which is your revenue interest, and how that is comparing.
The IMF in a previous report had raised concern about the credit unions, their bad debt portfolio, but the report I saw from Gaffin wasn't specific on Gaffin, wasn't specific on whether it's going down, what is the status of it. But what's also interesting in that report, you know, you have money transfers operators like Western Union and what's the other one?
Yeah, you have a number.
Yeah, a number of them, but mainly two. But what they indicated is that the for that year, $215 million in remittances came in.
In which year? To 2024?
2024.
Yeah,
215 million.
remittances have always been a major part of our income.
Yeah.
From
Yeah.
whether it's the US, Canada, or England. That is 2024.
Yeah.
I am certain
Yeah.
that for 2025 there would be a significant drop. Why?
Yeah.
Mr. Trump effect. Mr. Trump now charges a tax for you to remit money.
That's
That is
right.
one. There are a lot of people in the diaspora who are not from an immigration standpoint, stable. So a lot of them are not going out to work for fear that ICE will arrest them or do
Yes.
what they have to do.
Yeah.
And you could see that is going to seriously affect
Yeah.
the volume of remittances coming into the country. That now have further implications for us as an economy in terms of spending capacity of the average Grenadian
Yeah.
and how they spend. So it is, the IMF report obviously spoke to inflation being steady and not high.
I mean, the present report. From
Yes, the
IMF.
present report.
And that's now, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And that is because on the international market, the price of food and oil has been dropping and not escalating at any kind of rate. So when most of our inflation is imported inflation, you get the understanding that inflation for us could be managed. And that is something that is good
Yeah.
from that point of view. So, but the remittance issue and what is happening with the money transfer businesses is going to be significant.
But what's interesting there too, you have inflow and outflow. So we had just about $59 million going out through these institutions. So the net inflow is about 156 million. Understand that. But what's also interesting is the micro-lending institutions. Now they are growing, and I think even courts is considered micro-lending because you get money there. They're considered micro-lending. And they had loans portfolio of 18.6 million. So they're doing some business.
How is that? All the micro-lending?
The micro-lenders.
Yeah, but the big thing with micro-lending is the high NPL, high debt situation in terms of people not meeting their thing. The figures may talk about they're doing business of 18 million, but the figures need to also include what are the bad loans that they get. And micro-lending is a very difficult thing from the standpoint of making sure that the average micro-lender meet their obligations under loan arrangements. And it is because of what micro-business is about. You have one major person that is chief cook and bottle washer. And when you don't have systems in place to manage micro-lending, it becomes a very difficult. Credit unions have tried micro-lending and they halt the program. Banks have tried it, they halt the program. And it ends up in a GDB situation where GDB gets money probably at the lowest interest rate or grant funds. And they go to micro-lenders like fishermen and the mom and pop situation. And this mom and pop and the fishermen don't have no financial
records. And that's why interestingly, Gavin reported on the development bank, and their bad debt is just over 7% actually, which is considered high by GAFIN, and seeking to have that reduced.
I don't see how GAFIN could consider that high. If you're in double-digit figures like 12, 15, and 18, then you have a problem. But single-digit figures for NPL
it's just
ratio
over 7%.
is not a thing that will raise serious alarm. Of course, you have to manage it better, but at the end of the day...
We'll come back to finance, Chris, but let's turn a little to politics, what's happening here a little bit. We see that, and it was advertised, in fact, in the Northwest community, there were loudspeakers around today inviting constituents, persons to come out to a meeting tomorrow at the Happy Secondary School where Dr. Mitchell will be, or the NNP will be identifying or making known its, I don't know how you call it, caretaker. And Dr. Mitchell giving an official announcement of retiring from politics. I don't know, but this is likely to happen tomorrow. But the question is, someone raised with me, is how, what exactly is happening? If a caretaker is going to be announced or introduced, what happens to the parliamentary representative? Is he resigning from the parliament, and therefore we can expect a by-election? Or so, because if you have a sitting parliamentary representative, the same party how practical is it to have a caretaker because you have the parliamentary representative?
Well, the
So
caretaker
what
is being looked at here as a successor to Dr. Mitchell, whoever they choose.
Okay.
Dr. Mitchell have indicated that he's going to retire, so you have to have a successor come in. The caretaker can operate with the parliamentary rep for a number of months. If the parliamentary rep resigns from
You
his,
think this will happen though?
from his
What are
duties
you-
in
what are you-
parliament,
what are
then you
you-
have to call a by-election.
What are you projecting? You think he's
I don't
gonna-
think he's going to resign. He's going to stay with whoever the caretaker is, introduce him to his constituents in their
Yeah.
constituency,
Yeah.
and give that person some level of, his experience, what are the good things to look at and the not so good, and how to manage being close to the people in the
So
constituency.
he's not moving out of politics at this point.
Not at
but
this
but what's
point, I
the
think.
what was the downside to resigning totally and calling a by-election, allowing the caretaker or that person to assume the role fully?
Well, I mean, if he resigns and you have to call a by-election, then he's no longer the parliamentary rep for the area.
Right. But
So
do you think? Do you advise that? I mean,
I wouldn't. I would stay there and work along with the caretaker because the
Okay.
caretaker needs introduction and people need
Okay.
to get to know who that is.
Okay.
And what are the benefits of this
what
caretaker.
names have you been hearing?
Well, I don't want to speculate. You're hearing all kind of things. But, at the end of the day, you may hear something and somebody say this is the person or not, and then Dr. Mitchell does something different.
We've been hearing several names, and I mean, we can call them. I know one, there was a doctor in Montmorris that was called one. At another time, we heard of an employee at the airport authority, and now we're hearing of a government employee at the parliament. So tomorrow, I suppose we will get the full gist of what's
It's interesting though,
what's
because
happening.
I know NNP had planned to have a sort of mini convention this
Yeah.
month or towards the end of this
Yeah,
month.
yeah.
It doesn't seem as though that is happening, and probably they're pushing it forward.
Okay.
And,
Mean back up, forward, yeah,
forward.
okay.
And,
yeah, yeah.
and Dr. Mitchell taking the decision to have this meeting tomorrow and introduce who is this caretaker is going to be an interesting
Yeah.
thing, and not waiting on the convention to
Right.
make it happen.
How the party transition, interesting. Chris, we are entering the dry season. We're in the dry season because officially it starts in January. In fact, for the first 2 weeks of the year, it was pretty dry. There's not much rain at all. But the issue here is water. And I want to make the point that NAWASA, in a press conference recently, its officials were making the point that the cost of processing water and delivering water was rising in terms of the maintenance and new equipment and laying new pipes and initiatives of bringing water further from the west coast or the country into the southern part they have southern parts of the island with huge demand, and indicating clearly that consumers should anticipate rate increases, as a result of this. But what's interesting is that the regulatory body governing public utilities issued a statement saying that any notice or any information on price increases must come from them and not anyone else. So I thought that was interesting, but clearly the point here being made is that we should expect and anticipate increased water rates as a result of
Well, I think PERC got it wrong as well. PERC is not the organization to announce or prepare you for. PERC is there as a regulator for utilities. If they want a rate increase, they come to PERC to justify the rate increase.
That's right.
And the extent of the increase.
Yeah.
But it's not PERC's duty to talk about if a rate is going to happen or consideration of a rate. That is the authority. If NAWASA has operational costs, which they have, and that is rising either through salaries and wages, through equipment costs and all of that, and raw materials, you must look at what is happening and understand how it's going to affect the future operations of the business. And at the end of the day, NAWASA needs to prepare a detailed report and see the last rate increase that was given by NAWASA. A consultant was employed, and the consultant was looking at, is it something we must consider every 5 years or 7 years or whatever the time lapse is, based on the expansion of the system and the cost to operate the system. So that is normal. And if you're doing that as a business like Nawassa, you're failing. You need to constantly look at your rate and how it's meeting your needs. So I see nothing wrong in that. They have not announced that they're doing a rate increase.
No.
They have indicated that the organization has additional costs, whether it's in personnel or other things, and they're looking at their figures, and that is something they must do.
They must do. But Chris, related, of course, is the question of water management, but water, because globally, this is not limited to Grenada, climate change is affecting source of water and the quantity and quality of water that we're having. And what we notice in Grenada, as with the adjustment comes, you have high demands elsewhere. So it's not only household that's making demand. The Ministry of Agriculture is moving to establish or giving support financing through the Development Bank for some 70 plus greenhouses. It means you have greenhouses or shade houses. It means that we're using water from some source, from rivers or other sources, pipes, to for those plants. Yeah, household. If we look at Carriacou, culturally and otherwise, you don't see a building being constructed without what they call a cistern. And this all, the point I'm making is water harvesting, and what this means is that collecting your rainwater from your roof and storing it and using it. We need to see more of that. We know there's some initiatives here, but we need to see more of that in construction. Because it's going to get worse.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, our average rainfall per year have been decreasing.
Yes.
The idea is to speed up the decrease based on the amount that is requested by our customers on the outside, whether it's commercial, private, or otherwise. Hence the reason under the Green Climate Fund, Nawassa have engaged in serious storage capacity, so that when the dry season comes, there is still water available to distribute. And our clients, private and otherwise, have water. The idea of storage, whether it's individually or cisterns and so on in Carriacou, as you raised, cisterns in Carriacou will very much depend on the amount of rainfall.
Yes.
And if you can't get a rainfall and the cisterns are not filling, then what is the alternative? In Carriacou and Petit Martinique, Nawassa have introduced desalination plants.
Yeah.
And the desalination plants are there to augment.
It's very expensive.
Yes, but at the end of the day, it's better to have water than not to have.
That's correct.
And you will pay. So you have to look at the trends and what is going on. And another major issue is the quality of the water. We still have excellent quality based on rain, based on volcanic sources that we get, and of course the lake in terms of dew and runoff into that. So we still have good quality water. And we need to protect that as fiercely as we can, because throughout the world, it has been predicted that water will become the most important resource for us 10, 20 years from now, or even sooner, and wars may be fought over that because of getting the right. When you look at AI, and what is the major issue with AI and the servers is cooling, and they need water of a certain type to cool the servers. Hence the reason Guyana is going to put on a huge investment in handling AI and AI servers, because Guyana have huge rivers, natural water rivers that they could use and tap into to get the cooling systems in play. So it is one of the things that we have to keep constantly our eye on, because water is going to become one of the most important
I just want to
resources.
note here, I was listening to the Prime Minister St. Lucia, Philip Pierre, and the government policy there is to provide concession on spouting, on pumps, tanks, specifically to enhance water harvesting. So I think that this is excellent. This is the direction we need to go.
No,
and that's an
Grenada is going
example
in the
there.
same direction as
Very
well,
good.
encouraging rainwater harvesting.
Chris, let's talk a bit about our marine protected areas. Because what we're seeing now, and I want to pull out some examples, and I talk a bit about Molinier protected area. What we've noticed there, because within the Molinier protected area, we have the sculpture park. And recently I observed there, because I'm a frequent visitor there, almost weekly, the numbers there, the visitors there are growing. Sometime last week, I observed as much as 8 boats there at one time. Some of them, these boats, tow boats, and they could have as much as 50 plus visitors. So what I observe is the capacity, overcapacity there. And with that, because all these boats have engines and some of them moving around, that you can smell, taste the pollutants in the water there. So the question of managing the area to ensure that the capacity is not overloaded at any time, that the experience there is a positive one, it's a good one to get people to return, or just because it costs person to go there, they have to pay the board, they have to pay the diving equipment and other things. So
But they have to pay GTA too.
Exactly. So there is a cost, and there's earning potential and capacity there. So the question is how we add it, and I saw no one there from the MPA, because of course now you're paying online, so they don't need to be there to collect the money, right? So besides that, we have situations, I understand, in the Woburn area. We could talk more about that in those areas there. Persons used to swim in those areas there, Hog Island, across to the mainland, but because of the quantity of boats, and the absence of and the pollution taking place there, it's a major issue for us. So we think more attention needs to be placed in these areas.
Well, I mean, if you take the sculpture park and the capacity issues that you raise, I think GTA must establish guidelines for the tour operators on the way they use the area and the capacity of because I don't know if you have 50 people on a boat, how much of them diving in to see the sculpture park? Maybe 20.
Yeah,
but
possibly, yeah.
Contact with the area and what is happening need to be regulated because we have to manage it based on all that is happening with climate change and these sites. And it's a positive thing for us. And when we have the peak tourism season as we have now with cruise ships and all of that, we need to make sure that when these tour operators go out, they understand that there are regs, and the regs say that you can visit the site how many times with how many people. So you need to manage that, and that is something I will encourage. However, I believe the Woburn issue with the yachts and the Hog Island to Woburn and that body of water is more about sewer. And the sewer from the boats. And the boats are dumping their sewer in the water. And the guys in Woburn, the fishermen and the guys who do Lambie and so on will tell you, when there's a massive influx of boats, especially in the hurricane season when a lot of these boats come down here and more, there is no body in environment, GTA, that says this is what needs to be done with your sewer when you're coming to Grenada. In St. Vincent, you have a private sector person operating a boat that will go to these yachts and offer them to deal with their sewer, offer them other services that may be required. Grenada needs to speedily look at that. Because if your sewer is being dumped in the waters, it's going to affect the fishing, it's going to affect the people who use the water, swimmers, divers, and so on. So it is an urgent need, in my view, where that is, to me, probably part and parcel of what we're speaking about. But you can't have a boat pumping out their sewer without any regulator or anybody knowing what is happening. And the guys in Woburn tell you when it's happening, and a lot of boats, you get a stink from the sewer effluents from these boats.
Chris, I know what you're talking about. I will go to Woburn, take the boat across the Hog Island, and we're there for the day. And as a swimmer, I will take a casual swim from Hog Island onto the mainland. It's not far, you know. I can't do this anymore.
And
the
that
water
is the
is polluted.
And it's not only Woburn. I mean, you're having the Greater Grand Anse area, a lot of yachts just moor there because they have been told they need to be mooring there and not going much other areas. But you can't, to me, it is only, government has a responsibility to create an environment for business. And if you have a situation like that, offer this to a private concern. Let them invest in a boat, let them go to these yachts, let them pump their sewer out, so it's controlled. And you protect your environment, you can protect your fisheries and everything else. So I don't know if St. Vincent could do it. Why
can't.
Why is something wrong with us?
Chris, viewers, we're going to take a break and we'll be back. Stay with us.
At Maitland's Motor Sales and Rentals, we sell engines for all makes of vehicles. Toyota GT Corolla 6-speed, Toyota MR2 and Evolution 3. We've got transmissions for Toyota Noah, 2.0 Suzuki Escudo, Toyota Corolla. Windscreens for Grand Vitara, 2 and 4-door Escudo, Toyota Corolla front and back, and Suzuki Escudo wheel covers. Also available are motor oil, oil filters, crystal headlights for Toyota Corolla, brakes for all makes of vehicles. We sell C16 and Q16 racing fuel. Special prices on oils and accessories for customers who purchase vehicles from us. You're never left undone because we source the part if we don't have it. Maitland's Motor Sales and Rentals, empowering people through mobility.
Strange, but it's true.
Well, welcome back, viewers. I'm here, host Byron Campbell, and of course, Chris Diali. Chris, I got a late invitation last week to come to Carriacou. And when I asked why he invited me to Carriacou, the person told me, we have a lobster and lamb beef festival. I said, "Wow." But I was been invited a day before. And Chris, I said, no, I can't go. The notice is too short. I have a wife. I can't just pick up and go. But the reports coming out of Carriacou on the weekend was super. When I saw the foods in Petit Martinique, in Paradise Beach, Chris, I'm not missing next year.
Yeah. And I was trying to get in to go and experience the Lobster Fest.
Yeah.
And I was trying to make arrangements for myself and for my wife and myself. And 3 weeks before, there wasn't a room available. The Carriacou and all their properties were fully booked.
Yeah.
And it is good to see how successful that Lambian Lobster Fest came off.
Yeah.
They had a lot of GTA was part and parcel of the entire organizing.
Yeah.
They had a lot of the tourist people who will come. I forget the name we use for them now, where they invite them to come to spread the word on what is happening and how it's going. So I think kudos to the organizers and the GTA on an exercise well done. It was the first time. And the food was excellent. All the reports coming back is that the food was really excellent and the activities were well organized. So, Carriacou only like a critique here, there we not enough room to take people, Grenadians and foreigners coming in.
Chris, hold on. There's another critique here. Just get my technical colleague here just give me something that one viewer coming in to say that the budget allocated was 150,000, and this was happening while some people have no roof over their heads.
Well, yes, and that is a fair comment. But
what do you say to that?
It didn't seem to damper the activities. Yes, some people don't have roofs, and the reasons for that could be various. And labor shortages and whatnot.
Right.
But is it that Carriacou must stand still and not have activities and events? They have Carnival coming up in February.
Yeah.
Right? So the issue here is, do we want to promote them and have things happening? The same people who have roofs, they probably could get some money from some of these activities to help them through if money is a problem. But at the end of the day, I don't think the island must halt everything and say, oh boy, we need a roof and just go in a kind of daze. I think they must continue to doing what they're doing positively.
Chris, every week we talk about roads, the road condition in Grenada. Just coming to the studio tonight, we're live, of course, major delays. I heard the Prime Minister interviewed, interviewed earlier over the weekend, and he was commented on the state of the roads. I'm not sure to what extent he must have accepted responsibility. I felt he did, because he was talking about problems with contractors. He saw issues with procurement procedures. He mentioned the Caribbean Development Bank, but their procedures have been tried and tested, I want to say, because I'm very familiar with them. But clearly it's not working. There's issues all over the island. But what bothered me here, Chris, was that whereas there was responsibility, but I didn't see him accepting accountability. Because accountability to me, responsibility is about doing the job and the issues there, but the accountability is about owning the result. You can assign responsibility, but accountability is something you take on or hold on to. You can't delegate it, and I didn't feel this was happening. But clearly it's not working. We have issues there. Wherever we go, we see in these shortcomings, So how do we overcome this? Is it that it is simply over the head of the minister responsible for infrastructure? Is it that with the volume of portfolio that he presently carries, that it's too much? Because as a leader, that's a portfolio in itself, So, and I speak about this all the time. It's not working, Chris. There are too many issues there.
Well, Byron, in any other organization and business as well, the buck stops with the boss.
Yes.
And I don't think, I listened to the interview with the Prime Minister, and I want to be very frank and blunt. He did not accept the fact that he is the minister responsible, and he's talking about the problems that they're encountering, yes, but you have to own the problem.
Own it,
but what is even more critical is that when you develop a project like that, and you're talking about procurement, and you have special consultant hired and contractors, you must do a background check. Grenada's public service have a very rigid procurement problem. They have a very rigid screening of the people that they want to hire. So if they are faltering and they're causing delays, there must be a plan B. You didn't hear Prime Minister talk about a plan B and what is going to happen. He talked about an acceleration in terms of payment and so on, but what is the plan B? Okay, Grand Road, we know we have to sacrifice for the greater good for water being brought down and so on. And this project must end at Sentinel Tunnel. And if you were to think harder about this, what is going to happen when they start to dig on the carnage? We're going 3 feet on the carnage is water. The back wall on the carnage is a sieve. So what is it that we're going to be doing? That is probably going to cause more delays. And if CDB is funding the project, they will have a time when they want this money to be used. So
there's a time. That's
right. So the issue here is, it seems as though there is a lack of understanding of the possible areas that could have come up that will cause our problems. And if we get problem X, what will be the recourse and the solution to resolving it? You can't say to me that we have problem with aggregate, we have problem with bitumen, and we have problem with asphaltic mix to repair the road, when you know that this project was going to demand X amount of these products
before
the project started.
It
shows to me a lack, and I agree with you that probably the portfolio and the number of portfolios the Prime Minister have, because he has NADMA, he has security, he has
disaster preparedness.
So there's a lot. And
public utilities.
And probably that style and formula is not working as it ought to, because you are the boss in this portfolio, you delegate, but do you have time to follow up and find out what is happening and so on?
He's traveling a lot.
At the end of the day, what is happening is that people are inconvenienced, they're getting frustrated.
And it's a cost to the country in terms of productivity, time.
That's right. Because the traffic issues,
transport,
because of that is tremendous. I was in traffic jam this morning, up at coming through Monjaloo. And when I reached by the prison section there, I was engaged in traffic. First time I see traffic so bad in that area. Before I got to the roundabout on top of the lane, it took me probably about 40 minutes in traffic or more to get there. So it just shows that, and then, the issue of how the police is managing comes under some critique as well. We come into the studio tonight, we have to go through Belmont.
Yes.
Because they're diverting traffic because of work to be done on the lagoon. There isn't a police in sight to deal with the traffic congestion. People are just parking indiscriminately on Belmont Road, so major traffic congestion and jam. So the issue is, if you know that you're diverting traffic and you're doing that, isn't it the responsibility of the police and the organizers and the planners to coordinate these things properly and tell people in Belmont, you can't park between X and X, find somewhere else to go.
So somebody need to tell the minister is the minister, and is the prime minister responsible for infrastructure that is not working, that we're not getting the results we deserve.
When he says he knows, he sees it, he drives himself, and when he drives
And he
and
talks
go around,
about he
he's-
accept this is the case. He's not denying it, but at the same time, if it's not working, do something about it.
Yeah, and
You
I don't know throwing them under the bus like the consultant and the contractor and so on is going to make anything go differently. Look at the Cliff Road. I mean, there's another example of what is happening.
But we have a ministry with responsibility for implementation. How exactly is this working? What's the impact? What's the effect of this ministry? Chris?
That's a good question.
Because if you have a ministry that is responsible for implementation, I would expect, because this one was the critique, and I agree that because coming out of the last regime, there was a lot of challenges there. You had COVID and other issues there. One of the big complaints was that projects were delayed, but it's worse now, I think. It's terrible.
You could say that obviously because
yeah.
projects under this current administration, with Ministry of Implementation and the Prime Minister heading infrastructure,
Yeah.
has not worked as it ought to.
It's not.
So you need to question what is going on.
Need a review.
Because implementation was there to increase the implementation rate of projects,
Yeah.
moving it from 40% or 50%
Yeah.
to the high 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And we just can't seem to get there.
No.
Because all we're hearing about the problems, but we're not hearing about what is a possible solution for these problems.
And we're not hearing MIT, we're not hearing what the impact of this ministry is. We're not hearing what exactly they're doing, what are they pursuing, you don't have reports, you don't have updates, so...
Well, this government have boasted that they hold town hall meetings. And if you want to come and hear what's going on, go to a town hall
We
meeting
haven't
in a
had town hall
particular
meetings recently.
constituency. Again, the Prime Minister and his cabinet was criticized for the lack of
Yeah.
information
Yeah.
after cabinet meetings or whatever,
Yeah.
so that the people could hear from various ministers and himself what is going on, where the government are with projects, what they're doing, if we have a problem, how we're planning to solve it. And you're not hearing that level of communication
I mean,
to the public in general.
There's a lot of information on the social media, a lot of pictures, a lot of. But I think, and you made the point earlier, Chris, in the program that there need to be more dialogue, more communication between the government and the population. Where is the social partners also? More inclusiveness, I think, is important.
And
we'd like to
before we
see
leave
more
the
of that.
road issue, I want to bring up my pet peeve. Calavini Road with the dumping of the thing on the side. It's now
Okay.
leveled. They
Okay.
push a lot of the
Yeah.
debris into the river course
Okay.
area.
Yeah.
And you're seeing different types of rubbish now. So a person is breaking down and you have concrete slabs and steel and all kind of things broken up and they're just dumping and they're pushing. And you have to ask the question, where are our authorities when it comes to that? Here we claiming land on the side of the road by pushing things into a major river course that is coming out drain water, and nobody seems to be paying any attention to what is happening. We have these people operating on the side of the road selling alcohol, I'm certain without a license, and other things. And where is the Ministry of Health? Where is the PPA? Where are these people? The police will come and do what they have to do, but they don't have the authority under the law. And you're getting the feeling that we could do anything in Grenada now and get away. We're lawless. Sorry to have to say that.
Chris, of course, happening earlier this week, I think on Monday it was, that the first, is the first reading, I'm talking here about cannabis, marijuana, decriminalization of marijuana, this legislation, the debate in the parliament, it was introduced by, I think, the minister responsible for agriculture. I think I heard him speaking about this. So clearly this is an important milestone step in view of this process. But taking our listeners a bit backwards, we'd understand that several years ago, the whole idea, CARICOM introduced a commission to look at cannabis within the region. and most countries agree to decriminalize, legalize, in some instances, this product. The previous government had spoke about it, but this government has moved forward with the legislation to make this happen. There is a cannabis commission being established with a CEO and other officers because what they claim, a big part of it is going to be information education on this, because the legislation I've seen so far talks about specifically a few things to note, that it has not been legalized. Public use of it would not be permitted. It would be against the law to do that, and having it close to schools and educational institutions would not be tolerated. Persons over 21 and over will be permitted, can use it or can carry it, or otherwise. But if younger persons are caught with it, it won't be a criminal record. It will be more information, coaching them otherwise to do this, that households will be available to plant 4 trees, but you have to apply, you have to get a permit to do this. You'll be allowed to have as much as 56 grams, is it, I think? Don't know how much ounces is this, 1 or 2, on your person. But being very clear that this has not been legalized. The Rasta community, which is interesting because they're clearly being facilitated in this legislation. They'll be permitted to use this product, of course. They wouldn't have any limitation, it seems. Trafficking with marijuana is still illegal. It's a criminal offense, I believe, if you traffic in it, if you import quantities and intend to distribute it. But I think Chris is an important stage, and it seems, talking to one of the persons of the commission, they intend to hit the road with public information and discussions on this.
I see it as, and I want to be careful in my words here, a relatively positive thing. Because decriminalization, I understand, and not full legalization. So the decriminalization, of course, is as it says. If you get caught with a certain quantity, you don't get a criminal record that could destroy you for, especially young people, for years to come. And that is something that, you need to look at. When the CARICOM study was done, there are a lot of positive things talked about in terms of the medicinal aspect and the use of it. But there were also concerns for people under 21 or younger people, how it will affect the development of the brain and so forth. And there are studies, medical studies, showing that that does have an effect by the smoking of it, and I suppose using excessive quantities. So there are concerns. When Canada introduced the decriminalization and legalization, they had many problems, and they had to pull back the program. So for us in Grenada, we have a lot of laws, plenty laws, but we don't have what we would call the regulations to manage these laws, and the personnel to follow up to make sure that people are doing the right thing. We have laws here in Grenada talking about your seat belt. You have things about, you can't be on your phone and driving and so on. We have a lot of laws.
Yes.
But it's how do we get people to understand enforcing it. And the police role is enforcement. So if you make changes in the law, you have to make it practical for the police to enforce. So a police may meet a young person, see them walking the road and smoking a spliff, and the police, what can the police do, right? Whether the person don't have to be by educational institution, you don't have to be in a public place like a library or the stadium, but he's smoking his spliff and he's walking along the road.
But that happens now, Chris.
Yes, I'm not saying no, but what the point is, when you the police could arrest you.
Yes.
Right? And charge you.
Yeah.
No, with this legislation, they may not be able to do that. They may be able to pull you across and give you a warning and
take it from
you or something. But if you have the stipulated quantity, they can't take it from you.
No, they're not. They won't take it from you.
They won't have the authority to do. So I'm saying it creates a lot of gray areas when this is introduced and is discussed as to how we regulate it and enforce. And our police force, I think, is going to have an interesting time dealing with the control of this thing, and how you, in my view, how do you stop people under 21 years going in a party outside in an open area by the river and smoking a set of spliff?
No, you can't. Yeah. So there. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, we have to be realistic
Mm-hmm.
of how this is going to operate and how it's going to affect our society and what are the consequences down the road.
Or if persons have permission to grow, let's say 4 trees, how do you monitor this? How do you know it's 4 and not 5 or 6 or?
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
could have four. I could have 4 where I want you to see 4.
I'm not sure.
You understand?
But and also persons with criminal record for small quantities would be expunged. So I
Yeah.
think that's
That's
an
a positive
excellent
thing. Nothing is wrong with
And
that.
there's counseling
It's
for
almost
young
like a
people.
misdemeanor situation.
Yeah,
but
and so on.
at the end of the day, I think our challenge is we can't even finish. I give an example: Occupational Health and Safety Act. We've been in discussion on that for years. We cannot institute it
Yeah.
and put it in place because we don't have the resources and the people to manage it because it's going to cost a lot of money
Yeah.
to put in an OSH Act and regulate it and enforce it. You go to businesses that it applies. How do we enforce it? Because we need people, we need bodies, and train people.
Chris, Barbados, early election, Motley moved, you know, and not only election, but snap election. This is the second time she did it. She did
Yeah,
it in,
she's doing it.
she did it in January 2022. And she made it snap, she won. The opposition couldn't even participate. It was so quick. Now again, same move. She's done it. But what's interesting here is that, I mean, her name was featured, called as a potential candidate for the UN Secretary General position, which expires at the end of the year. Clearly, she would have seen that Trump, the U.S., which had veto powers at the UN Security Council, which has to approve it first, it wasn't going to happen. But more so, given she's been very open, very vocal, particularly on issues of the Venezuela invasion of the Venezuela incursion, however you want to call it. Well, it was an invasion. They went in and arrested, kidnapped Maduro. She's been very vocal about it, about the question of sovereignty and the importance of the rule of law. She's been very, very firm on these issues. The U.S. Clearly don't like this. It is likely, as a policy, they would support whoever is in opposition. Yeah, but clearly a good move by her. What do you think the results is like to be here?
I think she's going to win again handsomely.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's going to sweep, but she certainly is going to win handsomely because when you look at the opposition and their profiling,
Yeah.
and when you look at what the opposition have been promoting in terms of media and so on and social media platforms, you hardly hear of the opposition.
Yeah.
Prime Minister Motley is very much in the media. She speaks well. She's a brilliant lady. And at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of confidence in our BLP and her candidates to continue doing what they're doing in Barbados. Barbados is a country that economically and otherwise have been relatively stable. And Bajans will, when you talk to the average Bajan, will say, well, we don't have no major issues, so why not? So I think the snap election to happen on the 11th of February is going to catch them with their pants down a little. And I don't know if they can respond in the way they need to respond to that call. And I think, in my view, I think Prime Minister Motley is going to win again. This is going to be our 3rd time at it.
Yeah. So you don't think the U.S. would be able to influence the electorate to the extent where she can lose?
No, I don't think
Money
so.
is not
I
going
don't
to make
think
a
so
difference
at all.
there.
And she has been working, and her style of management of the economy and her ministers and so on is one that, Prime Minister Motley is people have said that she works ridiculous hours, 3 in the morning
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah.
And
She's my favorite prime minister in the region. Chris, finally, Trump and the world. Trump versus the world, at least the rest of the world. But something I want to talk about briefly. I was listening to, I think it was Behind Headlines, and I think it was the financial advisor to the government. I think it was Richard Duncan was making a point. He was referring to the Caribbean. Remember when Morris and other Caribbean leaders talk about the Caribbean as a nobody's backyard? You're saying, yes, it's our backyard, but you have to understand that. But I think the term being in nobody's backyard it was really going to that, yes, we are located in the region, but this hegemony, we are sovereign. We have our independence. You don't have the right to control us, to say who we are and what we can do. and to invade us and to impose your values like what we're seeing now. I just want to make that point, but you see what's happening in Davos, what's happening with Trump, with Greenland, with the bullying. I think we're seeing the Europeans are attempting anyway to stand firm against Trump and to call him bluff.
Well, you know, Mr. Trump and his administration clearly have taken a decision that might is right, for the benefit of the U.S., of course.
Yeah.
And the Greenland issue is just another one. But it's the hypocrisy in it that gets you. Because here you have might is right with Israel and Palestine.
Yes.
And they support that.
Yes.
And then you have the Russia with Ukraine, and they don't support that.
Yes.
Again, might is right.
Yes.
And the thing here is, when it's to your benefit, it's correct. Nothing wrong with that. I could consider any amount of atrocities, and I have no problem because I do accede to international law.
Or China, Taiwan.
Yeah, or China, Taiwan. And,
Yeah.
and I'm not partaking in international law. My soldiers can be hauled before a tribunal for atrocities
Yeah.
and so on. So here we have this superpower, whether we're in their backyard or not, is going to say to you that this situation now is about I big and I bad, I'm the bully. And you either do what I want or I'm weaponizing issues first.
Yeah.
We have issues in the Caribbean and the OECS where if they decide to pull our banks, the banks that
Correspondent banking relations,
banks,
yes.
we in trouble. And they're weaponizing. And when you see how they're weaponizing other things that they're doing,
It's possible.
it's quite possible. So we are now in a complex international and foreign relations situation in all of our countries. And how do we manage that so that our people are not dealt with and get deleterious effects in their way of life and what they know and enjoy. So it is not going to be easy. And Trump has made it very clear that that is going to be the policy going forward. He has pulled out from, I think, the last count was about 32 UN associated.
Including the World Trade Organization,
Yes.
including UNESCO, WTO, yeah.
Yeah, all of them. And he has said clearly that the new Monroe doctrine that they're following is one without rules. So no rules-based system. After World War II, we know that the rules-based system was introduced so that we could control these big superpowers that have undue influence on people.
Chris, you're out of time. You have the final say.
Well, you know, we didn't get to talk about the Ministry of Finance and the digitization and what is happening.
Yeah.
And I think I want to give kudos. That is a positive thing. The Inland Revenue, you know, you could pay almost everything online.
Yeah.
You don't have to go and stand up in a line in town. And I think that is an excellent move, and I commend the government and them for it. And that is something that we must raise. And the guys and the people who operate in the Ministry of Finance dealing with this digitization. I know you wanted to speak about the distribution of livestock from the Ministry of
I
Agriculture.
know, Chris, but we'll have to do it for next year. I'm told to wrap up. We're out of time.
You know, at the end of the day, I think we are in a complex environment when it comes to the ministry and what is happening there. Our Prime Minister and his government obviously have not decided to say much on the various requests, whether it's refugees, whether it's visas, whatever. But I think we have to work with them and understand at the end of the day, our Grenadian people must be involved, and we must express how we feel and what we don't want and what we'd like to see. But I don't see, you know, Dr. Gilchrist and Dr. Fletcher's thing about humanization. I don't buy that argument to extent because there are too much other things that if we go down that road that we can't support. We can't even give our own people housing, and we want to bring in people to get housing. I mean, we have to be real. We can't even, you go in the lab out a certain blood type, we don't have blood. I mean, come on. And you want to bring in more people to put pressure on those systems. So we have a lot of work to do. I fully support we need more people in our country, but we have work to do.
Viewers, that's all the time we have. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.